Oh, well, I'm Skywalker, yes, but that's not important right now, as in this episode of Cogs, Gears and Optic Sensors, we are looking at the first part of arguably one of the most important Transformers comic stories ever published, The Enemy Within by Marvel UK in the March of 1985, with John Ridgway returning on penciling duties fresh off Man of Iron, but more importantly than that, the first ever story by legendary Transformers scribe Simon Furman. We open with Megatron doing what Megatron does best, berating Starscream for going behind his back, as the Seeker team leader makes his objections heard about Megatron's long-term strategy and his wish for some more decisive action. The Decepticon leader, though, is not to be persuaded, and even makes a reference to the US issue number 3 where the Transformers encountered Spider-Man and realised that they have much to learn about the inhabitants of Earth. Rumble and Skywarp, though, looking on, remain unconvinced, thinking their colleague may just have a point, and as Starscream pushes his luck again, he is put well and truly in his place by a carefully targeted shot from Megatron's fusion cannon, with an awkward silence befalling the base, as Megatron, showing he's nobody's fool and anticipating further treachery, tasks Ravage to keep a watchful eye. Now, quick mention to the yellow hue that you'll see on Megatron during this issue, which seems to be an overly literal interpretation of the lighting on his box art that you can see here. Turning the page, though, we get a scene with the Autobots at the Ark, and you'll see these incredibly toyetic character designs, as that's all Marvel UK had to work with at the time. Back to the story, though, and the Autobots are conducting some routine maintenance and repairs, with Brawn quite literally living up to his name and doing all the heavy lifting, only to be subjected to a power overload while still holding onto the device. And to make things go from bad to worse, he's crushed under the weight of it as well, knocking him partially offline, and as he rouses and sees his fellow Autobots, the resentment starts to kick in. A suspiciously Skywarp-coloured Starscream, however, is plotting a way to rally his fellow Decepticons round to his way of thinking, and concludes that by attacking humans, it will draw the Autobots out into conflict, and the cons will have no choice but to join the fray, defeat the Autobots, and prove him right all along. He is, however, being spied on by Ravage, who, despite seeing the logic in Starscream's plan, knows what side his circuit boards are soldered on, and slinks away to report back to Megatron, only to be spotted, and the chase is on. Now, I love this panel here, showing Ravage's reluctance to go outside into the open, showing that Furman has really done his homework in relation to the reading of the tech specs, which I believe are all he had to go on at the time. And who doesn't recognise this second panel with this piece of Ravage art from his packaging, as Starscream proclaims his abilities for the reader and sets off in pursuit. And as the two go head to head on our next page, Ravage misses his opportunity, despite having had the element of surprise, and as Starscream corrals him into a dead end, Ravage lunges at him. Starscream blasts the ground beneath his opponent's feet, sending him tumbling into the ravine below and covered in rubble. As Starscream reflects on his actions, he realizes there's no going back now, having opened fire on one of his own. Brawn, though, is not having the best of solar cycles either, and he's approached by a horrendously off-model Sideswipe, who perhaps could have given a little more thought to Brawn's welfare after a workplace industrial accident, only to get launched across the Ark, much to the surprise of the other Autobots. Brawn renounces his allegiance to the Autobot Corps and has to be forcibly dragged off Sideswipe, which is no mean feat when he's rocking a 9 on his tech specs for his strength reading, only to warn all the other Autobots off, make his own personal door out of the Ark, and Mirage does make quite a leap of logic about stopping Brawn should he encounter any of the human populace, and the Autobots might have to take mitigating action to stop him.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Over at a top-secret US Air Force facility, though, a UFO is detected closing them down at an impossible rate of speed, and before they've even had a chance to scramble their defences, Chapter 1 closes with Starscream enacting his plan and dropping some fairly heavy-duty ordnance on the service personnel. Rolling straight into Chapter 2, though, which we should note sees a change of artist to Ladybird Books illustrator Mike Collins, and it transpires that Ravage has survived his fall in the desert, and despite dragging one of his back legs behind him, and having spent both of his missiles, vows revenge on Starscream. And with a quick recap for the reader, Ravage soldiers on, almost reaching the Decepticon base before he is found by Megatron and his troops and inform them of who exactly is responsible for his current state of disrepair. Back at the airbase, however, Starscream is making short work of the human pilot and reiterates to the reader his long-term plan to lead as he engages more of the jet fighters in the sky. But the fatal flaw in his otherwise perfect plan is that the Autobots haven't shown up yet, as unbeknownst to them, they have their own issues to deal with, as the relevant bots report back to Optimus Prime about the events that led up to Brawn's desertion, which is a great storytelling device here used by Furman to have them recount things to Optimus, who wasn't present, rather than use more traditional flashback sequence that we've already seen. Prime, though, has the same leap of logic that Mirage did, and concludes that Brawn may need to be stopped before he harms any humans, and it transpires that neither of them are completely off the mark as Brawn spies some cars that he thinks have been enslaved. Now, as Brawn hurtles through the streets, he's completely unaware of any human traditions such as road traffic laws, and he runs a red light, causing a human driver to take evasive action, who flips his car and has a head-on collision with something coming the other way. Now, Mirage and Optimus Prime may well have been onto something here, as we never see the occupants of those vehicles get out of them, and I'll leave it to you to decide what their fate was. Passing patrol car, though, sends his opposite number to assist at the collision site whilst he gives chase, and demanding Brawn to pull over, which Brawn takes a significant amount of umbrage to, and as he's about to dismiss the panicked human outright, the patrol cop, fearing for his safety, opens fire, but to predictably no effect, and he makes good his escape as Brawn turns his attention onto trying to liberate the patrol car instead, not realizing that it's an inanimate object, and subsequently shows the very unappreciative Earth cars exactly what he's made of as he sets about totaling them. Starscream, though, is making quick work of the US Air Force crews, having already taken 3 of them down, and returning the homing missiles fired at him from whence they came, much to the despair of the pilot. The battle is being televised by local TV news, and Starscream transforms before the camera, demanding that the cowardly Autobots come and face him. Our next panel shows that Optimus Prime has seen enough and proclaims that he must be stopped. But at this point, we, the reader, don't know who he's referring to. And as we turn the page to these parallel events that are occurring with Brawn's in-town destruction derby and Starscream's plan to lure his foes out of hiding. Both bots are challenged off-panel, only for the reader to turn the next page and find that Megatron has come to stop Starscream, who whimpers about the Autobots, and Prime's attempts to recover Brawn will only happen over Brawn's dead body. And there we have it, folks, a walkthrough of the first half of The Enemy Within. If you've read it, let me know in the comments. Interestingly, there aren't any extra covers for this story, as the UK books simply reuse panels for the interiors, and the original printing was in a mix of colour and black and white, as opposed to the collected comics edition from 1986, which I've used here. This story, though, wasn't collected again outside of the original run on Marvel Comics until 2010, where it's featured in the Best of Starscream collection, having been missed out on the Titan reprint series of the early noughties. As always, folks, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you didn't like it, leave one anyway. Thanks for watching along, and whatever you do, stay safe.